Welcome to Liquid Lunch. It's Thursday, January 21st, and I'm in the hot seat today. It's Sandra, usually the co-host for Hugh, but we kind of switched positions today, right, Hugh?
I just thought, why not let Sandra sit in that chair? I almost thought, let's switch the desk out and let's get a two-person desk in there, which we're going to do for tomorrow, but I thought, well, we didn't do that, so how about you sit in the chair today?
I have to say, it's very different being here.
Is it really?
Oh my God. I'm so used to sitting on the couch, so you're lower than I am. I'm higher, so I feel like this taller position. But I also feel so far away because we have our beautiful guest, Cheryl, and I'm so used to kind of being in the middle, and so I'm not as close to the guests as I normally am, and I don't get to sit beside Cheryl Millett, who is a holistic nutritionist in Toronto. Among many other things. She's an iridologist, writer, speaker, mentor, and she's here to talk about some really good things that she's doing.
That's right, including iridology. That's how you say it.
We're going to talk about iridology or iridology.
Potato? Is that
tomato,
one of those?
Tomato. Yeah.
So where do we start, Cheryl? I mean, you have a big practice, and you're also involved with the Holistic Chamber of Commerce in Midtown Toronto, which is great.
Yes.
So much to talk about.
The latest venture, Holistic Chamber of Commerce, last May, and there's the Walk Club. That's more of a community scenario, but I feel very strongly about walking and fitness for health, alongside the nutrition. Iridology is very much a tool. As you've experienced it.
I have, and I even read about how it was developed, which is a fascinating story, right?
The Hungarian.
And the Hungarian who had an owl or something like that, a bird, and he broke its leg, and he saw the eye change immediately.
Yeah, a black streak, which is, when you see the map on Iridology, the foot leg is at the bottom. So what he saw appear after the broken leg was a black streak.
Yeah.
So if we can just maybe introduce a little bit to the viewers what iridology is. It's basically the map of the eye. It's
a tool, a non-invasive tool, but it is reading the iris, which after years they developed a map. So it's a way to see what's going on in the body before it actually happens or symptoms appear. So it's really an analytical tool, analysis.
You know, we say that eyes are the windows to the soul. Yes. And I think this takes it to a whole other level because it takes it to almost a science.
Yes, that's where you would look at it as a science. Can there be more research on it? Absolutely. And it's still only hundreds of years old, although they've seen mappings of eyes on walls of Egypt or different cultures. So it goes back many, many more thousands of years. But it's very interesting to see what's going on in the eyes.
It's so interesting because the eyes are really the teller of everything. When you look into a person's eyes, you really can. They can speak a lot to you, and I don't understand why we don't have more. When we go to a checkup, for instance, why aren't the doctors looking at iridology? Why aren't the optometrists and the doctors? What a great way for those two fields to kind of work together.
Yes.
Through the entire health of the body.
Well, probably the traditional medical establishment kind of doesn't know what to make of iridology.
Well,
right?
Everybody's unique. So now you have to look at the pupil, because of the nervous system, may change the way your eye looks. So it might not be as easy to kind of scan the eye and go, okay, this is exactly what's going on. Because it's not about diagnosing. We know that the conditions are names, right? They're just names and labels that have been given. And when you try to tie that with just names like inflammation, irritation, toxicity, they don't kind of go together, right? And drugs would bring about a toxic.
You can see the toxic load in the eye. I've seen pictures where people have been taking too much Tylenol and.
Wow. Now, if
Stuff like
somebody's had laser eye surgery, does that affect the way you read the eye from that perspective?
It may, but most likely not, because we're just looking at the colored part of the eye. And we're just looking at the colored part of the eye. So there can be differences. Like a brown eye is very sandy. And so you don't see the fibers, as you can see in the light eyes. So there is differences. Sometimes I heard one quote where they said, iridology is a blue eye science. You can see more, right? There's only brown and blue, right? There's no green.
What about hazel?
That's
what I have.
They'll probably look, Hugh, they will look more blue when you actually look at them on this big in the screen.
So there's no green?
Not when I studied classical iridology, there's no green eye. There's only blue or brown.
Oh, isn't
there's
that
a mixed eye.
Okay.
There's a mixed eye, but really,
isn't that
Or
interesting?
sometimes
there's
people
no
have
green.
two different colored eyes. That's
Well,
what.
there's that happens. Uniqueness.
Now, does it make a difference with a person's pupil? Some people's pupils dilate more, and some people's pupils dilate less. Does that have an effect in the reading?
It can push things. So if you have so much color, and you have a very large, but in case of a very large pupil, that's an exhaustion. Right? That's the nervous system exhaustion. And you'll be able to tell that from the symptoms. So you are looking at not just the eye, but you can get from the person different things that are going on. It can squish the colored part together, making it more difficult to see. But you would be dealing with that very, very, very large pupil. But yes, some may have a larger pupil than others.
Interesting. So I think I'm exhausted a lot then. Because my pupils are always
They're
big.
not that big.
They're not right now?
No, they're not.
No.
Okay, that's awesome.
I've
then.
seen bigger.
I guess.
A lot bigger.
And then they look.
I guess I had a good sleep. Did you have a good sleep last night?
I did.
Because your pupils are a good size too. And yours are
thank
too.
you.
Yours are actually very
There you
small
Yes.
right now. But that also affects with the lighting and stuff we have too,
Absolutely.
right?
And I use there's a good light that comes with taking the photographs. So if they're very big after being flashed with the light from this far, then you know. Yeah, so iridology is very fun. I do workshops on it with groups of people. They get excited, they're curious. I love doing it for that reason.
I have to say, when I had it done, I found that the reading that I got, and it was like, basically the thing was, they said, here are some weak areas in your health, right?
Yeah.
And then, so there's some stuff you can do.
Yes.
In other words,
Prevent.
before it gets to a problem stage where you've got an illness, you can change your diet, you can take some steps now that are going to kind of deal with that condition before it becomes a problem.
Prevention is that's the seeing things before things actually happen. Absolutely. Actually, I'm working on encouraging people to get it done. If they have children, 5 years old, 10 years old, like 5 years, every 5 years to get it done, because then you're able to
well, you can
catch
see how things are progressing over time too,
based on their lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right?
So
Or their thoughts.
That's a great segue into discussing holistic nutrition, which is what you are. Iridology is one component that you cover, but holistic nutrition is really about maintaining. It's not just about the crisis, right? It's about the maintaining. So to your point, it's not even about only coming to you when I have an issue, but it's about maintaining it so I don't get an issue in the first place.
Yes, and we all, I think you might agree with me, the mind, right, because I do metaphysical work too, which we don't have on there, but the mind is a very, very, Hugh, a very powerful scenario. So having studied that for the last 4 years and traveled to South Africa, I was able to do some field work there, and Australia, and then South America and Peru for a month. It's a big part of it. We can't downplay nutrition at any time. But it's
so when you speak of holistic nutrition as opposed to a nutritionist, I know nutritionists, but I don't know a lot of holistic nutritionists.
Okay.
So what is the difference?
The key difference is, let's think of a nutritionist as a dietitian. like those titles going together. And then you have holistic nutrition. Definitely different schooling. So on one side, they're going to a college. On the other side, you're going to a school for holistic nutritionists. So you're reading lots of books, you're learning about gut health, you're learning about, they've incorporated a little recently mind, but you have the same biology and chemistry and things like that, and you do a lot around symptomology. So you're not necessarily using the food guide like a dietitian would. You're not still with the same regulations. You do incorporate herbs, and you may, if that's your desire to. So these other things can kind of come into play in supplements and things like that. Whereas a dietitian, my understanding is they can't even sell supplements.
Okay.
Plus, those are the people that do the food at hospitals, right? So
Well,
Jell-O,
yeah.
Jell-O, your peanut butter sandwiches.
Which we know those are all very healthy for you. You're going to come out of there really healthy.
I'll have to say, the food guide has improved over the years.
Really?
I'll study. Yeah, I've been asked the question by, let's say, Olympic coaches. They're going to work with coaches and so forth, and they'll ask me, so what do you think of the, so read it, but yeah.
So, but what I've heard is that it's improved, but it didn't have anywhere to go but up.
Yeah, well, this could be a good segue into healthy fats, because one of the things that I would put on the number one thing about the food guide is that they promote the refined, bleached, deodorized, what we call RBD, having been in food processing, vegetable oils. So your sunflower oil perhaps, but your canola oil, your soybean oil, so they promote those. And that's where, and I'm not going to talk too much in depth about the politics around all of that, but yeah, that's where I think is a big, where I.
So that's where you differ. So if you could have your own food guide, Cheryl.
Yes.
This would be Cheryl's Canada Food Guide.
Yes.
What would that include?
Well, I don't know if there'd be one, because to the diet choice of some people being vegan or being raw food, and I was going towards that raw food, vegan. Then there might be a different one for each of those. So paleo would probably be different. I mean, why vegan raw food? I would tend to say there's not just one guide out there. But if you wanted some guidelines, then probably what I would put at the basis is chew your food. Right? It's not necessarily even a food, but it's the whole mealtime experience of chewing, of breathing, of enjoying your food, of
so
not being
there's that holistic bent again. That's because I think with nutrition, a regular nutritionist, I don't think that they even focus on that. It's just the food itself. And I don't even think I've never spoken to a nutritionist where they said, chew your food and the breathing, and I've never heard that with a nutritionist, a regular nutritionist.
Well, maybe this ties into the metaphysical work. I don't know. The intuition of scenarios, but focusing, like one of the things, some of my older profiles are about digestions, focusing on digestion. When I did iridology, I did a thesis on colitis. And studying that, and then intuitively, it's the very first, when you think of food and you think of the process of getting it into your body, chewing is the first step. So I when I've done audiences and I'll ask them, okay, I'm thinking of a 4-letter word, and you can do it anywhere, anytime. It's free. It'll be one of the most valuable tips I can give you to take with you, with family, and tell others. What would it be?
Chew your food. You know what? That's great. That would be, I would not guess that, but that's amazing. In fact, if you don't mind, I'm going to borrow that.
You can absolutely borrow it.
So tell us, because what are the immediate benefits from chewing your food? And first of all, how many times should you chew, right? Is there a number?
Oh, we have to count?
Because if people should count.
32.
Right?
No, I have a formula. And it's not necessarily a number, which is what we can get hung up on a lot of things, right? How long should we do this for? How many steps should we take? And it's going to be different, and it may be different for that. So here's my formula. This is what I say. So you want to chew your liquid, right? And you want to, now hold on a second. Now I have to think about it. But you want to be able to chew your liquid and drink your food.
Okay.
That's it. So you want to be able to drink your
that
food
makes so much
and
sense.
chew your liquid.
Okay.
So because
I don't think
all
Hugh
these
gets that.
smoothies and juices that we have, and you just don't want to be guzzling them, because I've experimented. I'm one of the biggest experimenters. So, okay, drink a 6-ounce thing. You just do, and it just sits there. So part of, to the benefits that Hugh, what are the benefits? Well, first of all, it's easier on the stomach. The amount of acid it has to produce, how long things have to soak there. So you're not using up as much acid. You're not going to use up as much enzymes, perhaps. I mean, not doing the research myself and what researches that are out there, but it definitely slows you down. It allows you to relax.
So how do I chew my liquid?
You're just going to have to try. Just a little bit.
Like what she's saying with, say, any kind of a smoothie or whatever. Instead of throwing it back, you kind of experience it, take some time.
Think about that when you're drinking your beer there, Hugh.
I will.
And it doesn't have to be a full-on chew like the cow with the camel. It just, you're allowing it to be there in the mouth, right? You just don't want to guzzle it like you'll see the difference when you're doing water, right? Where you guzzle or you kind of swish it around in the mouth. So
actually, that's a very good point. And also, you take less gulps. They're smaller in size when you're actually conscious of trying to chew it, as opposed to the guzzling. You just take these big, gulps of, and so that can. When a person, to get graphic, when a person burps after they drink.
Right.
Does that mean they haven't chewed their drink enough?
Not necessarily. People are going to have Coke or those things with the fuzzy stuff in it, carbonation, and they're going to have that. So think of, are you swallowing air? Just as simple as that. Okay. Have you been eating too quickly? Things going air. So I think there's a few different things. But if that makes sense, what is the food that you're eating or drinking? As in pop, you're most likely going to. But if food sits there too long, people will find that they're doing this. But there is the swallowing of air. There was a neighbor of mine who could just swallow air, and then just
belch.
But also the other side too. Seconds later.
Yeah.
Don't know how she did it, but
I had a friend that could do that in Burpo, Canada.
Okay, well, that should be like a stupid human trick.
A good trick.
I was never able to do that.
Well, I think that's a good thing. That's not a badge of honor.
I'm going back to grade 4 here. Okay. So, Cheryl, let's talk about those healthy fats, right? Because people are talking about omega-3s, and or you should take your fish oil. And I'm not sure, and we talked about our mutual friend Lamont this. So let's get into that topic.
Let's get right into omega-3s. It's omega-3s is a buzzword, right? So it's technically called essential fatty acids. But we have to look at it as omegas are essential, but our body does not naturally produce it.
Okay.
So we need them, and we need to get them from our food. And they're in plant, which a lot of plant or plant oil supplements. And then there's the fish that came along, not necessarily the cod liver oil. It's been around for a long time, and it was taken for the A and D, not the omegas.
Okay.
So here you have another source that comes to mind. By the university, didn't really discover that it was a source of omega-3, but had been consumed by cultures for hundreds and thousands of years, not just Canada, but Russia and North and South Poles, which is a mammalian oil from the blubber of cold water mammals, right? Just being, if we're talking spirituality, just being in line with nature, right? Animals and being food and the circle of life. And
if you're from that area, we talk about the 50-mile diet or whatever. If you're in an area like sometimes I think about the Inuit and how they live, because they don't really can't vegetables are very
no
rare
fruits or
up
vegetables.
there,
Yeah.
right? So they have
None.
to just deal with what the environment provides, right?
Yes, and we can get into that 50-mile diet or 100-mile diet, or even to the point where what's your culture? If you think about a lot of mixed cultures and where you actually come from. So a lot of people come to Canada, but they start suffering from different things. Maybe it's the Western food, maybe it's the amount of sunshine they're getting. And the Inuit definitely through cultures navigate to what diet they did. And then the seal blubber was a big part of that. And for their animals as well. And there was an Arctic explorer that was Canadian, Vladimir Stefansson. And he actually, over 100 years ago, spent, so he's from southern of Canada, not the northern of Canada, but went and spent like 10 years there with them and went on their diet and was healthier for it. Then they didn't believe him at Harvard, and he had to check himself in and prove to them, because they were driving him insane with not believing it, and only to repeat the benefits that he got. So, vegetables, no vegetables, how much vegetables do we have? It's one of those things to take a look at.
So are you saying that somebody who perhaps lived in the Caribbean or Jamaica would also benefit from something that is native to Alaska or the Inuit? Is that what you're saying?
Possibly, because one of the key things is stress. And stress causes our body, and usually that comes from the mind, right? The stress in the body is one of those things that causes our body to be inflamed, causes our body, well, first of all, not to digest our food, not to convert plant to, in case of omega, to a longer chain omega. So now that we have, let's say, this global kind of lifestyle in one way, where there's media, there's social media, there's the internet, and we're interacting and so forth, we actually have, there's differences today no matter where you live, and stress I'd say would be the number one.
So does that mean that the 50-mile diet is not a priority diet because of the stress?
Yeah, I would think. Now, if I break my leg, I'm going to go to medical.
Right.
And if there's certain things going on, and this person says, okay, this might be beneficial for you, and as things kind of unfold, and it does. So the omegas, the omegas from the mammalian source, are I ship them to Jamaica. And actually there was a person that came up, and she's the daughter, and her parents love it. They feel so good on it. Their brain feels good on it. So, and even in Trinidad and even Barbados, right? So what's kind of going on? Well, each of those are unique scenarios, and I can't really know exactly how the variables are. But yeah, I think that whole global openness, see what, but if I was in the islands, I'd be eating lots of fruit. Just right off of the tree. Absolutely.
That's what we need.
You know what? It's so funny. I mean, it does leave a lot of room for debate and understanding. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions. But I've eating bananas here versus eating bananas in Mexico. They taste different. Yeah. Even the same fruit itself tastes different. Does that mean it's different properties? Does that mean it's a different, obviously, they'd still have potassium, but in different amounts? Or, it's so interesting because it's the exact same fruit and it looks the same, but it tastes different.
Well, the key thing around all of that is commercialization.
Okay.
Right? And then the next thing to that is processing, because the additives added or the homogenization.
Okay.
When you have things sitting in storage and you have things sitting on shelves for various length of time, that whole distribution is set up, right? So commercialization changes it. And if they shipped everything ripe, it'd be too soft.
Right.
It would be, there'd be too much damage.
Okay.
It wouldn't work. So they realize you do have to pick it too soon. So there's always going to be, but one of the things, stress kind of gets involved in all of this, is really how we think about all of that. So if you have that banana that doesn't taste 100% like the other banana that you picked off the tree when you were down in Mexico, it's how you think about that that's all of a sudden going to kind of start tripping us up. And some of my clients are very angry about the different things. You know, there's all this processed food and the GMO, and so this is where the stress, you know, the stress comes in. So first and foremost, to teach people that you have to accept and somewhat go with the flow of where you are right now and what you have before you. Some people only have, you know, the big box grocery stores, and where do you start with that? So
where do you start with that? Where do you start? Do you go organic? Where do you start?
Yeah, that's a great place to start.
Okay.
Organic.
Because I think even the big box stores have organics
Costco's
now.
all big on organic now, I hear.
But there's degrees of it, though. Organic is still also commercialized.
Yes,
scenario,
I
right?
suppose it is now, eh?
It's I can be fanatical, but one of the things I've learned after 10 years of being in a holistic nutrition is it's not worth being fanatical.
Because there's the stress again.
There's that stress again. And it's not worth thinking that there is a hierarchy to what's the best diet. Right? There isn't.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that
again,
makes a lot
that
of
gets
sense.
people tripped up. This is better than, you know, that's bad, that's good, this is right, this is wrong. And
You know, you're making me think that it's almost like your attitude. You said the attitude is important, right?
yeah, the mind.
You know, to
Yeah,
be grateful
the
for the food that you have in front of you is
Just the
probably a
fact that you
great
have
place
it.
to start.
Yeah, so
Right?
Oh my God!
You know, because I gotta say what?
I
No.
like you in that chair.
Really?
Wow! All this time I thought it was me, but I don't think so. I think it's the actual spot.
It's a chair.
It's
I'm
like a
rubbing off
thinking
on you.
chair.
No, we had Dr. Emoto here, and I asked him about.
I didn't know that. It was before my time.
I asked him about fluoride in the water, right?
yes.
Because he's the water guy.
Oh, I've met him. Yeah, it's wonderful.
And he said, his answer was interesting, and I'll never forget it. He said there are so many places in the world where you can't even drink the water. He said to have water that you can, without even worrying about
Pure.
it, just think about it, pour it from the tap, and to have it in abundance, he said, is something to be grateful for.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that's a really good point, is to be grateful for the fact that we even have food. Okay, it may not be organic, but I have food.
And plus, that's your attitude. And also that affects the food, because food has water in it. And it's the Dr. Emoto's, you know, you're putting your mental, that's going in, that's affecting the food, right? I think that's why we traditionally say grace before we eat.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
I just want to
Well, this is a very deep hue.
Yeah, it's a chair. Cheryl, just getting back to the fat for a minute, because a lot of people, like I don't take a fat supplement. I don't do that, and I don't look for omega-3 eggs. What am I missing, and what should people really do, and how's it going to affect them with the fats?
Well, if you didn't have any fat in your body, I mean extreme, you would feel dry skin. You would also, I mean, if there was any inflammation, you're going to feel more irritated. People can look that up as the fat deficiencies. So we have to have fat. And the whole no fat craze is not very good at all. They realize that now, because you need fat for hormones as part of every cell in your body. It's basically globally. Now the omegas being essential, I'll touch on that. I'm not opposed to people getting plant sources by any means, and in their food, you know, there's the hemp seed. I like the hemp seed. Some people prefer chia, and there's other ways to work with it, freshly ground. Other ways to work with that, you know, do your own, you know, cold press, those kind of things. Soak them, so you can think of that. Other things are cold press, you know, good olive oil. Now this is kind of offside, a different fat, like the monounsaturated fats. And then you have your healthy saturated fats, which may be coconut oil. Now some people can't even take coconut oil. It actually bothers them. And then others are taking grass-fed animal products, right? And having grass-fed butter and things like that, and they feel better. It seems to me that I feel better on animal products. That's been my experience.
So one of the things you wanted to talk about today was the omega fatty acid or omega fatty oils, specifically with the animals or the mammalian. Now, why did you want to speak about that? What is, as opposed to focusing on the other essentials, that seems to play a very important role for you.
Absolutely. I do a number of lectures on it and talk to a lot of practitioners. Specifically the omega-3s, which is an unrefined oil, which is very important to me because the aspect of raw and a whole food was very important.
What's that called, Cheryl?
I've never heard of that.
Okay, I've never heard of that.
So from my experience, it has proven to be the most effective supplement if we think of fish and we think of other mammals or we think of krill. Especially seeing how it works with chronic inflammation.
Okay.
And chronic inflammation, toxicity, irritation, injury, infection, all of that causes, the inflammation, but it's where the chronic. So that's whether it's heart disease or whether it's arthritis, cancer, diabetes, all of these have an inflammatory component. And the mammalian particularly is it's a perfect match to the human body.
Okay.
So it's a 1-to-1 ratio naturally of omega-6 to omega-3, which then absorbs sublingually, unlike fish, will bypass the unpredictable digestive system and go into the blood.
Now, you can only get this in supplement form? You can't get this in food form? Because you talk about the supplements.
Unless you're going to go to the places where they actually do the hunt and but you can. They do sell it.
Go to your local blubber salesperson. Your blubber department.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, there's one just down the street.
Yeah. So that hasn't been set up. That's not quite available.
So it has to come in supplement form, which you can buy at health food stores.
Some health food stores have it. I've been working primarily with the practitioners because there is an education piece to that. And essential fatty acids are very, very important for brain functioning, especially for autistic children.
Okay.
So a number of that, I don't want to call it the autistic industry, but there's a lot more of that going on. And there's a lot of, whether practitioners even working with children and even parents looking for things. It's even been proven to be more effective for strength and performance for athletes. A study at U of T, University of Toronto.
So I'm just thinking, there's a lot of people walking around and they know they can self-diagnose. They got some brain fog or maybe they have, just some minor brain blips. They can't find the right word or something. Maybe, I hear a laugh. Maybe, but maybe this stuff would actually help because you're saying it's really good for brain function.
Very good.
Right?
I'll just tell you a very brief story. When I first took it, no expectations, but I felt it in the first day. It was like a switch turned on.
Really?
In my brain.
Like how?
The light just came on.
Yes, I just saw that.
A switch turned on, and how I described it, and I laughed, and then I didn't necessarily put it in writing. I felt taller.
You felt taller?
Weird.
I felt taller. That's how I could best describe it. And it's not that supplements always do something for me. They really didn't. So just,
I want to try some right now.
So how many do you take? Do you take one pill a day? How does that work?
It'll depend. Okay. Now, according to you have to have your NPN number for products. So there's a suggested serving because this also has vitamin D in it. Okay. So typically a person, autism or even I'll say therapeutically, take it twice as much for the first few days. So it's a teaspoon or it's 2 teaspoons and then you go to a person's going to figure it out. Some people, it really got their juices going that they could really only take a half a teaspoon. They felt on top of the world just with a half a teaspoon.
That's because they were so tall.
Maybe they're already tall. Yes.
No, maybe they just grew so much they could look down. That's all they needed was a half a teaspoon. No, really, it doesn't make you tall.
Well, who knows? Maybe it does.
Tall, standing tall.
Okay, then I won't tell you about going to the doctors a few months later and being a half-inch taller.
Get
you were
out!
Really?
Seriously?
Okay, first time ever said. But yes,
Look at that.
not the first time said. The first time said on camera. But
Wow.
yes,
It's amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is.
So maybe just the fluidity, right? Just the lubrication.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's the fact that you felt better, and when we
You
feel
stood
better,
taller.
we stand. Maybe.
Yeah.
So Cheryl, okay, so we don't have that much time left, at least
Okay.
not today, but what else should you let people know about in terms of your practice or anything else?
Can we
Do you
talk a
wanna
little
do-
bit about the Holistic Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, do you
Yeah.
want to talk about that?
Why not? Why not?
Okay.
What is that?
What is it? In about 2 sentences, this is how I describe it. It is about bringing together people. Now, you say holistic, so that differentiates itself from the other Chamber of Commerce. But, so, holistic people, holistic-minded businesses, people, holistic-minded people that have businesses, so they could be the cleaners, they could be finance, so forth, coming together on a regular basis every month, and it's to help them grow. So here's where the spiritual, the personal growth comes in, and first and foremost, to help their business grow.
So you're taking the traditional concept of business, but bringing a more expanded perspective that is more holistic. So you're dealing with the same businesses, but a different intention behind those businesses?
Yeah, I would say so. But not having been part of the Chamber of Commerce, I can't directly talk
Okay.
to the differences. The intention is definitely to help the planet and incorporate all the different things we know that helps with the planet, helps with health, a healthier people, healthier planet, eco.
Interesting.
We don't define, or I didn't, but the Holistic Chamber of Commerce out of California did not define holistic for the purpose of how multifaceted it is. And you're going to have your definition, and maybe there's a whole book that defines the definition of holistic.
Well, I think, too, in the future, everything will be holistic, right?
I like the imagining. I like
Well,
the
so-
thoughts.
And integrated, right? Integrated.
Yeah, all that stuff. It won't
Integrative.
work if it isn't
Okay.
holistic or integrated.
well,
It
probably
must.
going back to how it worked
Used to
before,
be,
right?
yeah.
Studying, herbology, they used plants, and we're just coming maybe around full circle to being more the creators
So
of
this-
our.
it's a back to the future.
So
thing.
now,
Future to the back.
you're head of the, I'm not sure what the term is, but of the Midtown Toronto chapter, right?
Chapter presidents.
Chapter president. So who should get in touch with you to perhaps join the Holistic Chamber of Commerce Midtown chapter?
Yeah, anybody who has the practitioners, of course. Anybody who's holistic minded and has a business, and certainly people that want to hang out with holistic minded people can get in touch with me.
Now,
Yeah.
now, even though it says you're president of the Midtown chapter,
Yes.
is this exclusive to Midtown at this point, or is somebody in Etobicoke, could they also take part?
Absolutely. We just tried to structure where the meetings are being held
Okay.
here.
Okay.
And also to bring in retail. So a few of our clients are actually retail stores.
Okay.
And that's also what we want to build to as well, that way. So we have, within the meeting, we have a connecting component. We have talking about the chamber component. We have the introduction component, so everybody's able to talk 30 seconds about their business. And then, like last night, we had the showcases, which is I asked each of the businesses, the 3 of them, what was the one business tip they could give. So besides talking about, we had a holistic makeup person there, face makeup. We also had Kennelt Laboratories to do with hair mineral analysis. And so with having the people there being able to talk about how they can help others, they also gave a business tip. So I always try to bring that element in.
So now, do they have their own website? Is there?
Yes, we do. The
Okay.
best thing to do is to go to CherylMillett.com.
Okay.
I actually do have in the banner in the Holistic Chamber of Commerce, so they can click on that and then
Okay.
have
Okay.
a direct, because it is actually a long title.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Anything else? you
Yeah,
want
any
to talk
final words you want to leave us with, or something we didn't?
cover?
Chew your
Yeah.
food.
Drink your
And-
food.
And make sure you get healthy fats. Just to explore it, if you've explored so many other scenarios, then that would be another one, is to explore, omega-3.
It's interesting. Interesting you do say that, because being a vegan, I don't eat the seal oil, those kinds of things, but I do make sure I have a lot of the sunflower seeds and the nuts, and a lot of peanuts, whatever, and a lot of the oil comes from that. And it's interesting because I can feel the difference when I do. It does play a role in metabolizing the food, and it is a very important component. And doesn't matter which lifestyle you choose. There still are healthy fats for whether you're a meat eater or a vegetarian or vegan or whatever, or whether you have chronic kidney issues or diabetes or whatever. There's still all kinds of fats out there that are suitable for anybody, depending on even if it's a spiritual or a religious belief.
Absolutely. And there's raw food and vegans that are taking the oil because of just where they are with their health. And
right.
We talked to that earlier. So the one key thing for us is to understand whether we're doing conversion. We know David Wolf. He's had people come on and do tests and show that they're very deficient in omegas, and it's kind of, how do you get it? So chewing and eating properly and having less stress is really going to help with that conversion.
One of my favorite things about David Wolf is he said the most important food in the world is, guess what? It's my favorite food.
Cat food?
No.
Chocolate?
Yes! Chocolate. See?
I've
spoken like a true female.
Chocolate, cacao, right?
Chocolate,
it's not all,
yes.
They're not all
the real
created
chocolate.
equal.
Yeah, like the real chocolate, the raw chocolate. And wow, I'm so in sync with that.
Okay. Well, it's been great to have you on, Cheryl.
Well, it's a pleasure to be on. I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for the education.
And people can go to CherylMillett.com, and it's up there on the screen, or has been, and
we'll come back.
So we look forward to having you back sometime and
to learn more about the Chamber of Commerce.
I'd love to come back.
Okay, good.
Love to come back. Thank you.
Maybe next time we can talk about colors as part of holistic, because I love the color of your sweater. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, so much to do with holistic.
It's everywhere. It's everything. It's integrated, like you said. This is hopefully the way we're going. And rather than silos and separating everything. It would be nice.
And looking at color, that's why wearing more color or bringing more color into your home.
Well, even as from a food perspective, and I know we're going on a little bit, but a friend of mine who studied chef, who became a chef, said the first thing he was taught is you eat with your eyes first. Mm-hmm. So it's all about the presentation, and the more colors, the more appealing.
What about those orange peppers? Are those real? Those bright orange ones?
Yes, they are.
Because they look too orange.
Oh, so that means the red peppers are too red?
No, because when I remember green peppers and red peppers, but the new orange peppers, they're new to me.
A green pepper is an unripe red pepper.
Really?
Yeah.
Seriously?
I did not know that.
How much more do you want to know? You have to come out to my lectures.
Oh my goodness.
I drop these things all the time.
Chew your food. A green pepper is a unripened?
It's an unripe pepper.
Yeah, but what's an orange pepper then? Halfway ripe?
What's a what pepper?
An orange pepper.
An orange pepper. No, that's just meant to be orange. Like
an orange pepper is because the green and the red got married and had a kid.
I want blue pepper.
Okay. Yellow tomato, red tomato. You've seen all those heritage tomatoes.
Well, they got those purple tomatoes, those dark ones
purple
now.
tomatoes.
I like those.
Champagne. They're
grape tomato, but they're not purple. They're just small, like a grape, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Commercialization has definitely limited what we think actually exists.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Just the one red tomato, for instance.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So.
It's a whole other topic.
Cheers.
You can come on just to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
right,
we're
going to wrap this up. And
yes.
You know what? We're going to talk about color some more, because Lisa Cripps is coming on in a couple of minutes. She's a painter, and she paints very colorful paintings.
Are we going to get to see some?
Yes, we are.
That's awesome.
So we'll be right back here on LiquidLunch.channel.com.